Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We begin with Allah's blessed name. We praise Him and we glorify Him as He ought to be praised and glorified. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all His noble messengers, and in particular on the last of them all, the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. I greet you with the greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, here from the IBN studio in my native island of Trinidad. I regret that we lost last Sunday. I was in Tobago, the neighboring island of Tobago, and I couldn't get a flight to fly back to Trinidad on Sunday morning to do the live program. I was in Tobago because I had 4 Orthodox Christian guests. 2 of them were Russians. I think you know the Seika from the website, the Vineyard of the Seika. He's a Russian military and political analyst of the first order, really, and he has a very important website, the Seika. But my viewing audience are already familiar with him. So the Seika flew to Tobago to spend 10 days with me. And there were also 2 guests from Belgrade. One was a US-trained attorney, and the other was a medical doctor. And the Seika and his wife, that made 4 of them. And we spent 10 days in very great conversations, comparing Islamic eschatology with Christian eschatology, and preparing ourselves for some work that we're going to be doing in the future, but I'll tell you more about that sometime later, inshallah. I resumed this morning with our signs of the times. You know that we can look up in the sky and we can try to anticipate whether rain is coming or not, but my critics say that I can't do that with the events which are unfolding in the world. They say only Allah knows the future, and yet they look up in the sky and they say it's going to rain today. Yes, Allah knows the future, but Allah has communicated to us, and He does continue to communicate to us with signs which are unfolding in the world. And woe unto those who are heedless of the signs of Allah unfolding in the world. And we've been looking at the subject of money, which is one of the big signs unfolding in the world. And I mentioned to you in my first program in February that the Indian government did something extraordinarily mysterious. Extraordinarily mysterious. It was a few months ago when the Indian government betrayed the Hindu religion, and I hope that my Hindu listening audience here in Trinidad and elsewhere in the world will pay heed to what I'm saying. The Indian government betrayed the Hindu religion when the Indian government demonetized, like a thief in the dark on a Sunday morning, the 2 biggest currency notes in India, the 1,000 rupee note and the 500 rupee note. Why did the Indian government do that? Ask your Mufti, ask your Maulana, ask your Sheikh. Why are they sleeping? Why don't they wake up and answer? The reason why the Indian government did that is because the Indian government was acting on behalf of Wall Street. Acting on behalf of Wall Street, because those who, the Judeo-Christian Zionist Alliance, which is ruling the world from Washington at this time, and which wants to rule the world from Jerusalem tomorrow, they want to take control of the world of money even more than they do so now. They want all money to be electronic money, electronic money. And the Indian government was being used as a guinea pig to get all of India hooked into electronic money. And when all of India is hooked into electronic money and they see what are the problems that they encountered in India, they will now have it easier to deal with the rest of the world. Pakistan coming up soon. Pakistan coming up soon. And so to the rest of the world of Islam and the rest of the world. And if you had 1,000 rupee notes and 500 rupee notes in India, and you were saving this money in big notes, you could take it to the bank provided that you paid your taxes on it. And if you feared that you did not pay the taxes and you might put you in jail, you take the loss. Otherwise, if you take it to the bank and you provide the proof, then the bank will put it into an account for you. You don't have an account, they'll open an account for you. And now your money is converted into electronic money. You can't take it out. No, you can't. There's nothing to take out. All you can do is to transfer your money from one account to another. That's coming. And if you're comfortable with that, that's up to you. But the rest of us who get our guidance from the Quran, we say no. Not Allah's guidance in the Quran tells us that's not money. The paper money was bogus. You take a piece of paper, and remember your brother Imran has studied international monetary economics in 2 universities. I know my subject. When I say you take a piece of paper and you print a picture on it and you put a number in it and you give it a fictitious value and you call that money. And Mufti says that's halal. That's what Mufti says, it's halal. Ah yes, Mufti, you'll have to answer in the grave for saying that it's halal. It's not. It is bogus, it is fraudulent, it is haram. And I am trying to teach the subject because I realize that our scholars of Islam have not studied the subject. Yes, it is my good fortune that I studied monetary economics. But I have met in Iran with I don't want to mention the names of the ayatollahs, but they are very, very eminent ayatollahs of Iran, some of the highest. And I found to my surprise they didn't know the subject of monetary economics. It was a shock to me. The same thing in the Sunni world, the same thing in the Shia world. And so I'm teaching the subject now, hoping that through these programs we may be able to reach to the scholars of Islam and teach them what is money in the world today. This is a presentation from Islamic eschatology. It's not just a lectures in monetary economics. And I pointed out that Islamic eschatology has an advantage over all other eschatologies in the world. What is that advantage? We have data, we have knowledge given to us in the Quran which nobody else has. And one of those things which I have reached out to you from the Quran, and I don't know why my critics will not go to the Quran. They criticize me for every single thing under the sun. They even say I am a supporter of Trump without providing evidence. If Trump says something right, I say it's right. And if Shaitan says something which is true, I say Shaitan has spoken the truth. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with you? Can't you think? If Shaitan speaks the truth, you say he's spoken the truth. Why not? But he's still Shaitan. I'm not saying that Trump is Shaitan. I'm not disrespecting the President of the United States of America. But if the President of the United States of America wants to have good relations with Russia, I know why you're angry. I know, because you are angry because Russia gave you a beating in Syria. Because you're getting all your state-of-the-art weapons from Santa Claus to wage your bogus jihad, and now you're angry that Russia and the United States under Trump might reach to some friendly relations. But I don't know whether it's going to happen or not. But this is what Trump has said, and I say, well, I believe this is a positive development. But that does not make me a supporter of Trump. Everything I say, they're critical of me. So now, I asked them to come to the Quran. The Quran gives us a very important event in Islamic eschatology that nobody else has. And that is that when Pharaoh was drowning, he declared his faith in the one God. And then Allah responded. It is Surah Yunus. And Allah responded, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ Al-an, now Pharaoh, وَقَدْ عَصَيْتَ قَبْلَ, and before this you were in obstinate rejection. وَكُنْتَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ, and you were corrupting and destroying everything around you. فَالْيَوْمَ نُنَجِّيكَ بِبَدَنِكَ, this day, Pharaoh, we have decided, we have ordained that your physical body will be preserved. Why? Why does Allah want to preserve the physical body of Pharaoh? Do you know the answer? لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً. That's the answer. That your physical body, when it resurfaces in the historical process, when it is rediscovered, would be a sign for a people to come after you, Pharaoh. What is the sign? If you don't know, then let me tell you. The Quran is saying that when the body of Pharaoh is discovered, it will be a sign for a people who will live the way Pharaoh lived. There was this epic encounter between Pharaoh and Musa alayhi salam, between arrogant power, declaring that he is the God Most High, Ana Rabbukumul A'la, and persecuting and demonizing and waging war on the religious way of life and on the Muslims who were Banu Israel. And Allah destroyed Pharaoh, sent a miracle. The water parted, the Israelite people crossed over to safety, and when Pharaoh and his army attempted to pass through the opening in the waterway, the waters came down and they were all drowned. Allah is saying, this epic encounter will be repeated in history. History will be repeated. It will occur one more time. When the body of Pharaoh was discovered in 1897 or 98, it was just at the same time that the Zionist movement was created. And so now we are living, according to Islamic eschatology, in a special time in the end time, the last countdown, you may call it. That in this last countdown, from 1897 until the return of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, the return of Jesus, that every Christian is waiting for, and every Muslim is waiting for. The events are going to unfold in history like beads on a chain, beads on a necklace. So you have to be able to read and see what is happening. You have to be able to connect the dots in the historical process now from 1897. I think it was in my last lecture I pointed out that within a few years of the body of Pharaoh being discovered, two things happened. In 1902, do you remember? I'm 75 years of age. Tomorrow I'll be gone from this world. I want you, my students, to do your homework. Study history. Connect the dots of history. And may Allah give you the nur with which to do it. Because this is vitally important to be able to anticipate what's coming ahead. In 1902, the Zionists organized a conference in Paris to plot regime change. They wanted the Ottoman Empire to have regime change. Why? Because the Ottoman Empire controls Jerusalem, controls the Holy Land. And the Zionists want a state of Israel in the Holy Land, which will eventually rule the world. They plotted, therefore, in 1902 for regime change in the Ottoman Empire, in Constantinople. In the same year of 1902 that they were plotting destruction of the Ottoman Empire, they had Dajjal sent Abdulaziz ibn Saud to Riyadh to take control of Riyadh, so that a state of Saudi Arabia could eventually be created to replace the Ottoman Empire, controlling the world of Islam on behalf of Dajjal. That was 1902. In 1907, again plotting for the destruction of the Ottoman Empire, Britain and France embraced Russia in a triple alliance. But Russia was always the enemy. How come you now want friendship with Russia? Why? Because they need people to fight the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman army is a powerful army, and they want to use the Russians as guinea pigs, the way the Indians are today being used as guinea pigs. And how will they get Russia on their side? They use a bait. They offered Russia Constantinople. The Ottoman Empire is the sick man of Europe. When the Ottoman Empire collapses, we, Britain and France, promise you Constantinople. And Russia fell for the bait. But not anymore. You can give Russia all the bait you want today. It's not going to fall for it. No, not today's Russia. And so that was 1907. 1908, and regime change in the Ottoman Empire. They succeeded in 6 years. It's unimaginable. It just took them 6 years. In 1908, regime change in the Ottoman Empire, and the so-called Islamic government is replaced now with a secular government, the Young Turks. The Young Turks who will now do things that the Muslims would not do. Yes, the Young Turks who are secular nationalists. That was 1908. And now they prefer, the new government in the Ottoman Empire is waging war on Islam. They need this. Why? They need a godless government in Constantinople. Why? Answer, because they want the Arabs to turn against the Ottoman Empire. They want the Arabs to fight with them to be able to defeat the Ottoman troops in the Holy Land. That's why they need a godless government in Constantinople. We know your plans. We've understood you very well, and we're teaching our people now. This was 1908. And then, finally, in preparation for the Great War, which we know is coming in 1908, as today we know another great war is coming. But there are those who eat biryani and go to sleep. They don't care. Leave them. In 1913, they did something very extraordinary in the world of money. They created the Federal Reserve Bank in the United States of America. It's a private bank. And the Federal Reserve Bank will now issue U.S. currency notes. And the U.S. currency note will say, "In God we trust." But these fellows are very clever. Very, very clever. The Federal Reserve Bank is created because they need to finance the war which is coming. They need to be able to get a vast amount of money to finance the war which is coming, so they can conclude this mighty war, this first world war in history, quickly. And the only way you can do that is with bogus money. So the Federal Reserve is going to be allowed to print paper, issue paper, and you don't have the gold to back it. Remember, the government of the United States of America is contractually obligated that 20 US dollars is worth 1 ounce of gold. So you're not supposed to print more paper than you have gold. But where is the policeman to check? No. So the United States can print paper, and Britain and France can print paper in order to be able to finance the war. When Germany attempts to do the same thing, They know how to bring down the German mark, the way the Venezuelan bolivar today is in no man's land, and the Pakistani rupee, and the Algerian dinar, and the Bangladeshi taka, and the Serbian dinar, etc. So the German money is in no man's land, finished, but they are printing paper to finance the war. This is 1913, remember. The Federal Reserve Bank is established. The body of Pharaoh was discovered just about 16 years ago. And by 1913, the Federal Reserve Bank is established. The Great War began in 1914. What was it? In the city of Sarajevo, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand is on a state visit of Sarajevo, and he was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist because the Ottoman Empire has been waging unjust war on the Orthodox Christians, and there is also Roman Catholic versus Orthodox Christians rivalry in the Balkans, and this led to the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, the Archduke of Austria-Hungary, in the summer of 1914. And this eventually led to the First World War. The Ottoman Empire tried to stay out of the war, but they had moved the pawns on the chessboard so cleverly that eventually the Ottoman Empire had no choice but to join the war on the side of Germany and Austria-Hungary. And so on the one side you have Russia allied with Britain and France in a mysterious triple alliance, and on the other hand you have Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire waging what is known as the First World War. When this war was going on, it appeared that Germany would win the war, because the Germans brought a new weapon of war, never used before, something called a submarine. And the Germans were able to maroon Britain, and Britain was losing the war. It was at that time you had British spies in Arabia, and you had Jewish forces at work in the United States of America. On the one hand, the British spies in Arabia took money with them to bribe the Arabs to join with them. Sharif Hussein, who is the great-grandfather or the great-great-grandfather of the present king of Jordan, was appointed as Sharif of Mecca by the Ottoman Khalifa. He took £7 million from the British treasury to betray his Muslim brothers. And Abdulaziz ibn Saud, I think he was given £500,000 a month, something like that. I can't remember the figure. But they bought them both. And on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean now, you have the Judeo-Christian alliance trying to get Britain, United States, into the war. It was at that time that the Jews got Britain to agree that if you will promise to give us Jerusalem, we will get the United States into the war. Oh, but Germany had been exceptionally kind to the Jews. How could the Jews betray Germany like this? The Germans never knew about this until afterwards. Yes, Britain then responded and issued the Balfour Declaration in 1917, promising the Jews, the Zionist movement, a Jewish national home in the Holy Land. This is the Balfour Declaration of October 1917. 1 month later, the British Army, supported by thousands of Arabs, were able to defeat the Ottoman Empire army, and Jerusalem was liberated for the Jews. And then the British general declared, today the Crusades are over. The same month, or maybe it was October, a third thing happened, and that is that Russian troops are only one arm's length away from Constantinople. Britain and France had promised Russia you'll get Constantinople, but they were giving a promise that they never intended to keep. That's their way. The British way and the French way is to tell monstrous lies and to deceive. That is what they have left behind them in history, that they are liars. And they deceived Russia. When the Russian troops were one arm's length away from Constantinople, then the Russian Jews acted. And they brought about regime change in Russia. It was called the Bolshevik Revolution. And they killed the entire family of the Tsar, took over Russia, and then proceeded for the next 70, 80 years in waging war on the religious way of life, to destroy Orthodox Christianity. These are all facts. My critics can do what they want. I am giving you facts. These are things that actually occurred. And then as soon as the Bolshevik Revolution took place, Russia withdrew from the war. And so Constantinople is now safe for the British and the French and the American. United States entered the war, and eventually they were able to defeat Germany, and Germany had to surrender. And the Ottoman Empire was not only defeated, the Ottoman Empire was broken up into bits and pieces, and Pakistan, you better study what happened. Pakistan, you better study what they did to the Ottoman Empire. I'm warning you, you better study what they did to the Ottoman Empire. They broke it up into bits and pieces, and that is what they want to do with Pakistan. I got my education in Pakistan. Don't you make the mistake of telling me that I hate Pakistan. That's rubbish with a capital R. The poor people of Pakistan paid for me to get my education. They built an Institute of Islamic Studies in Karachi. They paid for the staff. I even got a small scholarship stipend while I was studying in Pakistan. My education is from Pakistan. How can you dare say I hate Pakistan? Yes, I hate the traitors who have led Pakistan and the governments, and the traitors who have led the armed forces of Pakistan all through Pakistan's history except for brief moments. I hate those people. I don't hate Pakistan and the Pakistani people, not at all. What we saw now was that the war ended with defeat for the Ottoman Empire. The war ended with the Zionists taking control of Jerusalem, with Britain acting on their behalf, taking control of the Holy Land. And the war ended with the United States of America now replacing Britain as the new ruling state in the world. But remember, they had printed paper to make all the money they needed to fight the war. And one day, it's going to come back to haunt you. And by, what was it, 1929, I think, they had what was known as the Great Depression, because all the currencies started tumbling because you just printed paper to make money out of nothing. And then you had the Great Depression in 1929 with money. Bogus money caused it. And so what did the US government do in 1933? I told you about it. You should remember what I said. In 1933, the US government decided the only way we could get out of this fix in which we are, because we're broke. The United States is broke. The money is crumbling. They need gold, and they need it fast. what to do. The US government decided the only way out is to seize the gold from the people of the United States and to do it by stealth. So they made it illegal for anyone in the United States to keep gold. You have to hand it over to the US government, who will buy it from you at $20 for 1 ounce of gold. So you have to take the paper and hand over your gold. Gold coins, gold bullion, and gold certificates. And then if you refuse to do it, or if you're caught with gold after a certain date, you'll be fined $10,000 and you could go to jail for 6 months. What did the American people do? Those who had some sense took their gold and shipped it to Switzerland. What are we going to do tomorrow when every government in the world bans gold? What will we do? What they did was some of them shipped their gold to Switzerland. The rest of them tamely and meekly handed over their gold to the US government. And then after the US government had collected all the gold in the United States, what did they do? They changed the price of gold from $20 to $35 an ounce. So the paper that the people had was now worth 40% less. And the US government had confiscated 40% of the gold of the United States, and the other 60% was still with them. It's so-called safekeeping. That's how the United States got out of the jam that they were in because of bogus money. But does our Mufti study the subject? Does our Mufti study the subject? And the Mufti is giving fatwa that paper money is halal. Does the Mufti not fear Allah? Will he not study the subject? When I met with Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli in Tehran, maybe about a month ago, he is recognized as one of the most learned of the Ayatollahs of Iran. And I had a chance to meet with him. And I discussed this subject with him. And he did not know. He knew nothing about monetary economics, the Ayatollah. All that he had was a classical Islamic education, but he had no knowledge of monetary economics. So I asked him, Ayatollah, would you allow me that I could share with you some of this information? He said, please go ahead. And when I told him about what happened in 1933, you know what he said? Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli, I hope you're listening in Iran. He said the American people should not have handed over their gold to the government. I love that answer. He said, defy your government. The moral law is the highest law. I love that answer. What we have to do today, in anticipation of a tomorrow, when they will ban gold, I know it's coming. What we have to do today, and I'm answering some of your questions now, we have a few minutes before we stop for questions. You can call on the phone if you're in Trinidad. There'll be a number at the bottom of the screen soon. But if you're outside of Trinidad, I suggest that you don't call unless you don't have the internet. It might be better for you to send an email to me. I have my laptop here, so I can check for emails. But if you want to call from abroad, yes, you can. What we have to do today, in anticipation of a repetition of what happened in 1933, is that people who follow the religious way of life must get their churches, their synagogues, their temples, their masajid, to start minting gold and silver coins. Yes. And when a government comes to ban the use of gold and silver, the entire religious community, people who follow the religious way of life, unitedly must resist the governments that seek to perpetrate such a fraud on the people. This is where we're going to reach for today's lecture. That was 1933. I have not as yet reached the Second World War. Next week, I hope, inshallah, we'll be able to take you beyond 1933 and what the federal government did in the United States, and take you to the Second World War. And when we go to the Second World War, then, of course, you learn about the Bretton Woods Conference and the Bretton Woods Accord and the International Monetary Fund and the Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund. When I was studying this subject at the Institute of International Relations of the University of the West Indies here in Trinidad, it was a very exciting year for me, from 1972 to 1973. And then in 1974, I went to Switzerland to study at the Graduate Institute of International Studies in Geneva. And remember what happened. My teacher of international monetary economics was Professor Cousin. And every single day in the class, I was challenging him because it was bogus. And then he called me aside one day. He said, you know, Mr. Hosein, you don't have to attend my class. Meaning, I don't want you in my class anymore. That's what he said to me. He said, just write the exams at the end of the year. And so I stopped attending his class, and I wrote the exams at the end of the year, and I passed my exam. But even at that time, I knew that this was all bogus. I hope and I pray that our muftis and our maulanas and our shuyukh and our ayatollahs will one day take a little time to study the subject. I'm teaching the subject here from IBN with the hope that you, my students, will be able to help me get this knowledge over to the scholars of Islam. Now, let's see some of the emails while we're waiting for telephone calls. If you are in Trinidad or in Tobago, you can call. This email is from the Azores, and he is a Christian, and he says that he studied theology for 3 years in a Catholic seminary. And what does he say? This is the last email I got. Dear Sheikh Dr. Imran Hosein, no. I wrote my PhD thesis, but I left Geneva before defending it. And thank Allah I did not defend it, because there were things in that PhD thesis that were inadequate. So I did not defend the PhD. I did not get the PhD as yet, and I'm not interested in it anymore. I have enjoyed watching many of your lectures, and I'm fascinated by your teachings. I am Portuguese, and I live in the Azores, in the second smallest island. It's a 9-island archipelago. I'm also a Christian, and I studied theology for 3 years in a Catholic seminary, and I almost became a priest. I'm sad because of the world situation, the terrorism, the wars, the killing of innocent people. I feel sad for all the Muslims. They have been turned into scapegoats by the globalist evil empire of the United States and of Israel. I will be honest with you. Every time I watch you on the internet, I see Jesus Christ in you. I see Jesus Christ in you. And that's exactly how you look and sound to me. When I listen to you, I know I'm listening to Jesus. It's a big mystery, as we are all called to be brothers and sisters, other Christs in the world. The Bible teaches that we are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. MashaAllah. The Bible teaches that we are the salt of the earth and the light of the world, mashallah. Back in 1989, I had a mystical experience in my life. That experience changed my whole life. and I never became the same again. For me, it's not a question of believing in God, for I know perfectly well that God is real. I've always known that. The Bible also teaches that we are the light of the world, and we're living in a world full of darkness. I know that we're living in the last days. The signs of the times are all around us, no doubt about that. I don't have any questions. The only reason I'm writing to you is to let you know that the sound in your live video broadcast should be turned higher. I have great difficulty in hearing what you are saying because even with the sound turned high on my computer, still the sound comes in very, very low. I hope we fix that problem. Please, if possible, tell your technicians to fix the problem. Thank you so much, and may God bless you and keep you under His divine care. Thank you, my brother, my Christian brother. This one is from Melbourne in Australia, and he's asking questions about Dajjal and space and time, and about Gog and Magog, and metaphysics in Islam, but I'm sorry, we should give priority to questions pertaining to money. So we'll have to postpone answering your questions at this time. I'm sorry, my brother. This one is from Pakistan, and it speaks about the encounter between Musa alayhi salam, the Prophet Moses, and Khidr alayhi salam. And again, the email is not directly pertaining to money, so could you kindly allow me to pass on? I would like to answer questions pertaining to money. Sheikh, I would like to know why Islamic banking, this one is from where? He doesn't tell me where he is from. I would like to know why Islamic banking is haram. Thank you, and may Allah guide us all, inshallah. Islamic banking never says that paper money and electronic money are bogus and fraudulent and haram. This is my view, and I believe I'm standing on very firm foundations when I declare it to be bogus and fraudulent and haram. And I invite you, if it is bogus and fraudulent and haram, do you know of any Islamic bank in the world which says so? Is there any Islamic bank anywhere in the world which wants to bring back dinar and dirham? Can you find a mufti anywhere on the face of the earth, or maybe even on the moon, who says that this paper money and this electronic money is bogus and fraudulent and haram? None, none. But there's more to Islamic banking than that. But I don't have the time today to address the subject of Islamic banking. But if you go to my book entitled The Prohibition of Riba in the Quran and Sunnah, you will find a section at the end of that book with questions and answers in which I take up such subjects as what is murabaha in Islamic banking. This question is from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Imran. I'm not sure if this question has already been asked in your lectures, as I've only listened to 2 lectures on the End Times series before this question dawned on me. Okay, what's your question? When gold and silver are introduced into the market as the official medium of exchange, will inflation, that is global inflation, including products, services and commodities, drop to realistic levels as par value, or will items have to be purchased at post-inflation prices? Answer: inflation is defined as constantly rising prices. In a free and a fair market, prices are determined by demand and supply. When demand exceeds supply, the price will rise. When supply exceeds demand, the price will fall. So in our market here in Trinidad, tomatoes, sometimes the price goes up and sometimes the price goes down. That's because of demand and supply. But when you're using bogus money and the money is constantly falling in value, the prices will constantly rise. That is inflation. And as the prices rise and the money falls in value, people are ripped off. The value of your salary, your income. You used to be able to buy a camel with 1 month's salary. And then the value of the paper falls, and now you can only buy a donkey. And then afterwards you can only buy a goat. And then you can only buy a chicken. 3 times in the Quran, Allah has prohibited this. But of course, Mufti hasn't studied the Quran. Mufti has not studied the Quran. And he's giving fatwa that this money is halal. When Allah says, وَلَا تَبْخَسُ النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. Don't rip off people. This is rip off. This is inflation. Inflation is directly linked to bogus money. If you fix the money and you have halal money, inflation disappears. The same price you paid for a sheep in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, 1400 years ago. Demand and supply remaining constant is the same price you'll pay today. So we are not talking about inflation once you return to gold and silver coins as money in our market. Our prices will remain constant, but will change only in response to changes in demand and supply. It is outside of our market where you have the bogus money being used that you have the problem of inflation, and that is their problem to solve, not ours. We now have a question from Bangladesh. I hope this email will reach you. My question is, will it be the same if I buy silver and gold jewelry instead of coins? Because it's hard to find and it's suspicious, even if I buy legally any gold and silver coins. No, jewelry cannot be used as money. Why? Because jewelry has, in addition to the gold content, it has a labor content in it and the artistic content in it. So you cannot use jewelry as money. So you'll have to get either gold bars, gold bullion, they call nuggets as well, or gold coins and silver coins. At this time when we don't have a market where we can buy and sell using gold and silver, it makes more sense to buy and invest in gold bars, which are cheaper than coins, because with the coin you have to pay for the minting process. It is cheaper, therefore, to buy gold bars rather than gold coins. And you will use your gold bars and silver bars in order to preserve your wealth. That's the function of the gold bars and silver bars. Only when we have a market in which we can buy and sell using gold and silver, dinar and dirham, only then would it be necessary to mint the gold bars or the nuggets into coins. And for that purpose, I would like to see if we can get an alliance of Muslims and Christians and Jews and Hindus and Buddhists, an alliance. Everywhere in the world where we can do it, we do it. And in every church and every temple and every masjid and every synagogue, we do what the temple in Jerusalem was doing at the time of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. The temple was minting its own gold and silver coins. This is Masjid al-Aqsa. At the time of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, the Prophet Jesus, when people brought their Roman money to the temple would not accept that money because there were graven images on the coins. So there were money changers, and they were changing the Roman money to temple money. And the temple money was halal because it had no graven image. A graven image being a graven image of a human head or an animal. That is a graven image that it makes it haram. So the temple was minting its own gold and silver coins. If the temple Masjid al-Aqsa could be doing that at the time of the Prophet of Allah, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, we can do it again today. So we mint our gold and silver coins in every temple, every masjid, every church, every synagogue, and people can bring their gold bars and silver bars to the nearest temple or masjid, and the temple will mint it for them. And I believe if it can be done free of charge to the people, that will be so good. But I leave that for those who will come after me to do this work. The situation in Pakistan is growing. This one is from Peshawar. The situation in Pakistan is going worse. Oh, there's a caller. Go ahead. Hello?
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, Maulana, assalamu alaikum. I always listen to a program. It is very insightful and informative. I'm calling from Las Lomas area here.
You're calling from Las Lomas. That's a beautiful area. Go ahead.
Yeah. What I would like to know is where is your book available in Trinidad that we could get it, you know? So if there's any place we could go and purchase it in Trinidad, your books.
The question is, where can we get gold and silver coins in Trinidad?
That and your books too. Your books that are your
Oh, my books, my books.
Could get it.
Okay. All right. What you do is send me an email.
Okay.
Have you got email?
Yes.
Okay, then there's my email address at the bottom of the screen. I don't have all of my books in Trinidad, but I have many of them. Some of them are in Malaysia, and I have to wait until I can get them shipped to Trinidad. So send me an email, and I can arrange for you to get my books. Anybody else who would like to get my books, just send me an email, and we arrange for you to get my books. But about gold and silver coins, my plan, and make dua that it might be successful, is to approach the Hindu community in Trinidad and Tobago, approach the Christian community in Trinidad and Tobago, and try to persuade them that if the temple in Jerusalem could do it, we can do it. And so every masjid in Trinidad, I know Masjid al-Quds in Cape Town. Masjid al-Quds in Cape Town is minting gold and silver coins for many years now. Yeah, and the Muslims of Cape Town can go to the masjid and buy their gold and silver coins right there in Cape Town. Yeah, I've delivered the khutbah of Salatul Jummah several times in Masjid al-Quds in Cape Town. So if we can do that in Trinidad, then every masjid, every temple, Hindu temple, every Christian church will start minting its own gold and silver coins, and the people can go to their local masjid or temple or mandir and buy gold and silver coins, inshallah. This one is from Pakistan, and he says, sir, the situation in Pakistan is going worse day by day, and the media plays a major role in the situation. Is it a war for power and money, or are we going nearer to the end time? The people who control the media around the world today, the newspapers, the radio stations, the television stations, are the most dishonest people on the face of the earth. Who said that? Yes, the President of the United States of America said that. If Satan says something that is true, should you not say he's spoken the truth? I'm not saying that the President of the United States is Satan, but if somebody says something which is true, you must say he spoke the truth. And that is what the President of the United States has done. He said that the media around the world, no, the American media he's speaking about, and that's the worst of all, are the most dishonest people on the face of the earth. They're destroying Pakistan. And I turn off my television set. I don't watch television. I don't read the newspapers. And I advise you to do the same. Until next Sunday, inshallah, Yawmul Ahad, I say to you now, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi